deputy public protector as to what happened. There might be perhaps some reasons. Of course, I think she indicated sometimes restraints, financial restraints, but the courts have also pronounced on financial restraints, and it comes from not this current case, but from a case, earlier cases, where it was said even where an institution of government says it was restrained by financial restraints, it ought to show how, given what it was supposed to do, how there was a shortfall, but it can't just be a bare.
Okay, so in that section 181 of the Constitution, subsection 3 says, other organs of state through legislative and other means must assist and protect these institutions to ensure independence, impartiality, dignity, and effectiveness of these institutions. Do you agree that the courts constitute other organs of state?
Well, you know, within, I can only speak within the context of some of the cases that have been determined.
Do you agree that courts are other organs of state?
The independence of the judiciary should be jealously guarded. They cannot interfere within the administrative sphere. So if you're saying support,
are courts part of organs of other state? This is a
organs of state. No, they are independent institutions that are in the separation of powers. It's important to emanating from that, then you can't determine them to be organs of state. In fact, they are not listed within the Public Finance Management Act schedule as organs of state, so they are not organs of state.
So they exist outside the state. They are not part of the state.
Well, if you're talking about the state colloquially, as we understand the state, you know, even NGOs, we are all members of the state. However, you know, if you're talking about it within the context of what Section 181, subsection 3 states, no, it shouldn't. They shouldn't be considered to be those organs of state.
Okay, my final question is your direct response to, there's been like a big resistance now to implement the remedial action of the public protector, as it used to be the case under Advocate Thuli Madonsela. What should we do to politicians or people or institutions that do not implement the remedial action of the public protector?
Well, I think in answer to that question, I said it's referral to Parliament, which is what Advocate Thuli Madonsela did with the Nkandla matter. The matter was referred to Parliament, and when Parliament couldn't budge, then the EFF decided to take the matter to the Constitutional Court. So I would say the first port of call is to approach these institutions of state in order to assist and in ensuring, in supporting, as the Constitution says, in supporting these institutions of democracy.
Were you at the State Law Advisor's Office or where?
At Justice, I was at the Law Commission. I was at Justice College. Then I ended up being part of the litigating unit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chairperson. I also would like to continue the line of questioning that the Honorable Member abandoned. So the public protector is a chapter 9. It's like its origins flow directly from the Constitution, and those are stewards of our democracy.
Correct.
So you go and work for a reactionary government because you want money.
Yes.
You choose money over the imminent fight for justice. Am I correct?
Well, when you are young, you make decisions like that.
Hector Peterson was younger than you in 89 when he died in 76.
When you are not conscientized, you make decisions like that.
So you were not conscientized?
Yes, I was not.
So how did you know that your decision is not political if you are not conscientized?
Because when I took a decision to apply for the defense force, it was not because I wanted to defend that regime. I just wanted to work.
So stewards of justice often choose higher values, not money.
We grow in our values. My values have changed.
Because
Since then, as I said, I was younger. I was just motivated by having to work and put bread on the table.
So what is motivating you now? Why don't you go work elsewhere? Because here you are going to fight justice. You're going to have to confront people who are doing an injustice. You're going to have to defend the public against the abuse of power. What evidence do we have that you choose justice, not expediency?
The evidence that you have, it's with my other record, where I've worked. Currently, I oversee mental health institutions. If I'm to talk, I protect the rights of mental health care users at the moment. And except for that, I do legal education in churches. When I was working for the Law Commission, and there was this progressive legislation that was produced daily, and I became aware that this legislation is meant for some people, and these people are not even aware of this legislation. Since then, I started to
Am I right that that's charity work? It's not a fight for justice. There's nothing opposing you. There's nothing threatening your life. There's nothing. When you're the public protector, you fight against the powerful, your family, even your reputation and all of that. Justice. There's nothing at stake in these things you're saying. What evidence do we have that the expediency choice you made of a career in '89, which you so explained now, how do we know you're a fighter of justice?
Well, I am a fighter of justice. We fight differently. You know, some people toy. Some fight with their minds. Some fight with their pen. Some fight with their money.
What
they sponsor worthy causes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just 5 minutes. So I know that some people fight with their legs, some with their hands, some with their hair, some with their mind.
Yes.
What evidence do I have that you fought for justice and didn't do things because they were giving you a salary? Meaning, even when you were fighting for justice as a lawyer, lawyers don't fight for justice, they get paid for it.
You know, even my current job where I overpay, where I oversee institutions, it's not worth. I wouldn't say it's not worth the time. I do it out of passion. But really, to be paid $3.50 per hour, with my experience, I'm doing it for the love of my people. I'm doing it for the love of my country.
How old were you in 1989? Just the final question.
I turned 21 November 1988. So I was 21 years old.
Okay. Chairperson, the very, very last one. You might still have time.
It will be the last one. Last one.
Yeah. So the position of the Deputy Public Protector, you will be working with Advocate Tulima Donzela, who at the moment, Mkweban. You will be working with Advocate Mkweban.
Yes.
There is a lot of negative public review on her because of the many losses of cases, including the personal costs that the court gave to her. And they had very bad things to say about her. Can you give us your view of the performance of this office under her stewardship, and what you think, if you were to be appointed, what do you think should happen to sort of redirect, or are you happy with how she's been doing things, or the office has been doing things?
Well, I'll give you my prima facie view, not conclusive, in the sense that for me to make a comment about somebody's performance, I mean, even in a workplace, you have to assess. And when you do that performance assessment, you are presented with portfolio of evidence. And there are instances where even a person has to speak to this evidence that is provided. So I cannot willy-nilly make a judgment. That is why I'm saying it's a prima facie view. And I strongly want to believe that that is why even people that have to decide on the competency of a person have to make a factual inquiry first it's then that you decide. So I'm trying to say I'm not in a position to conclusively decide on her performance.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chairperson. I want to follow this line of questioning regarding ethics. So when you work in the department as a legal advisor, in essence, you're not working for those departments, you're working for the minister. Am I right?
That is correct.
That's why you move with him.
I am the advisor to the minister.
Yeah, that's why you move with him. Am I right?
That is correct.
You're working for this guy on his personal discretion that they need your advice. Am I right?
Not on his personal discretion. Section 12, capital A of the Public Service Act sets out that a special advisor's duties is to advise the minister or the executive authority. So it's in his capacity as the executive authority on his powers and on his duties.
Yeah, it seems to me whether you get hired or not is his discretion. That's my point. Even if you are executing those things, that's why you are moving with him. You are working for him as an executive authority. That's my point.
As the executive authority,
Yes.
I agree,
Now,
Honorable
why
Member.
did you continue working for him after the court said he lied under oath?
I had no reason not to work for him.
So you are prepared to work at that level for a person that the court of law has said they lied under oath? That's fine. Is there no ethical conflict in you?
There is none, Honorable Member.
Excellent. So let's go back. Why did you leave the NPA to advise ministers if you're so passionate about fighting for justice? It seems to me pursuing criminals at the NPA, finding justice, in particular this high-profile case that you're involved in, leaving it for a lucrative job, doesn't pose you like a person who's actually passionate about justice. What's your reaction to that?
Honorable Member, at the time, and I think if you could take notice of reports, the NPA was very volatile. There was many threats on my life. As a result, I had VIP protection. We were not seeing eye to eye with management on the issues of the Ndlozi case. And as I've alluded to before, the matter was taken to court by the Freedom Under Law. That is why we ended up prosecuting the matter.
I don't have time. So
And also, the reason why I left, at a young age, I took up a senior management
Just one
post.
second. Don't worry. I'm interrupting you because I only have 5 minutes. I'm not being rude. You left because your life was under threat.
No.
What are you saying?
No.
Why did you leave the NPA to be an advisor to a minister? Your answer is, my life was under threat. Did I hear you properly?
It is a component of my answer, Honorable Member. May I kindly explain further, please?
Okay.
So, at a young age, I took up a very senior position in the NPA. I had served in that position for 5 years at the time. Like any other young person, I had other ambitions to grow. Now, in the environment in which I was, under the circumstances, I had no provision to grow further. And I had realized that is why I took up the other position.
So you left, part of it is that your life was under threat, and that made you leave. You're still young. Your life may be under threat in the NPA, in the public protectors. That's even worse. That's higher. That's the highest call. So how do I know you won't run away again?
Honorable Member, the threats on my life were in 2010. Proceeded up until 2014, I think. By the time I left, we no longer had VIP protection. So there was no imminent threat at the time. Hence, I am saying that my answer cannot be broken down. It's a cumulative of issues.
So there are two things. Why did you tell me about life under threat if it doesn't matter? I don't understand. So let me concentrate on growing. Now, the trajectory seems to be you leaving this fight for justice in the NPA to be an advisor. There's no fight for justice there. So it's about career.
A fight for justice, Honorable Member, doesn't only mean that you need to stand in court. However, advising a minister on issues of governance, strategy, administration, for me, it is also a fight for social justice. A lot of the people of South Africa are not receiving services. The minister is in a position to take decisions. So if I can advise in
Then
that
he started
particular
lying
office,
under oath, and you still worked for him. The court says this man is a liar, and then you still worked for him. I'm not sure about your ethical compass. This is a Chapter 9 institution. Shouldn't this highest call require a highest demonstration of ethics?
You have 1 minute.
Honorable Member, my ethical conduct cannot be questioned on the decisions I have taken from being the lowest prosecutor
Now I'm asking
up
about
until
this
a
decision.
senior position.
Sorry, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the decision to stay working for a person that the court said they lied under oath.
By the way, Honorable
Why
Member,
can't I question your decision to stay and work for a person who lied under oath?
by the way, Honorable Member, when the Constitutional Court pronounced itself on that decision, 14 days later, former Minister Kikaba resigned. So there is no period that can be said that I then stayed and worked for that particular person.
Or even for 14 days, it's not a period. Okay, are you a member of the ANC? Have you ever been a member of the ANC?
I am currently not a member of any political party. I have been a member of the ANC. I grew up in the ranks of the ANC Youth League. I have led in the ANC Youth League. I have, however, not had membership of any political party, I think for about 8 years now or so.
8 years.
I think I'm not accurate,
So why
but
didn't
it's
you?
been a couple of years.
Why didn't you tell us about this important fact of your struggle credentials?
Honorable Member, I am not going to carry out a function where my struggle credentials are required. However, my struggle credentials I know, there were nothing to hide.
Well, I didn't
Hence,
know
I
them.
am responding
I didn't know
to
them.
you.
The last question
Honorable Ndlozi,
is the last
question.
one, Chair.
Last
Please
question.
indulge me. Thank
Last
you. I
question.
appreciate it. I will remember this. The last question, you see, when a court decided, and it has to do again with the remedial action, the enforceability of remedial actions, when that ruling of the Constitutional Court in relation to the EFF case, it seems to me we can read it as the remedial action of the public protector are binding until set aside by a court of law. Why do they still need a court to enforce them? I mean, it doesn't seem quite creative, because if a person ignores them, they've already been declared as binding until a review. Are there other creative ways that these remedial action can be enforceable when ignored by powerful people who are even prepared to lie at a court? That's my final question.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, the creative ways can be cooperation. For example, if it is a minister who has done that particular act, the minister is answerable to Parliament, then the public protector can then approach Parliament to ensure that their remedial actions are being adhered to. But also, what normally happens with members of the executive, members of Parliament, when the public protector passes the remedial action, it would also be referred to the ethics committee to accordingly deal with that particular matter.
I'm going to ask you to keep your answers very direct and short. I just have 5 minutes with you. In your motivation letter, you say you played a role in skills revolution. Which skills did you revolutionize?
I actually made education fashionable, more especially to the elderly. When I was working as a teacher at the University of South Africa, most of my students were elderly people who had given hope in life, and through my actions, we've given them hope.
Which skills did you revolutionize?
legal and social work skills.
Okay. What is the legal principle in dispute in the public protector's case in court now versus Pravin Gordhan about the suspension of the remedial action?
Actually, the issue in dispute is whether the member of the executive to whom the remedial action has been directed can act despite the fact that the matter has been taken on review. That is basically what the dispute is about.
So what is your view? Should the remedial action of the public protector be suspended? I mean, there are huge implications to that. Any politician can just take it for urgent application for suspension. Don't you see any problems with that? Just your view.
I'm quite mindful of the fact that the matter is before court is sub judice, but let me give you my view. There is nothing wrong. Otherwise, when you say the public protector the remedial action of the public protector must be implemented despite the fact that the matter has been taken on review, the implication of that is that you are giving the office of the public protector the powers of the Constitutional Court. So it is the correct legal interpretation that the remedial action be kept on abeyance pending the review of the matter in court. It is a correct legal position in my view.
So you worked for the police station of Douglasdale for 8 years. Police stations are known to be key centers of corruption as well. Did you ever witness any corruption there, and did you report it?
I've never witnessed any corruption taking place. Had I done so, I can promise you, Honorable Ndlozi, I will have reported it.
Then at the Hawks there, did you ever witness any internal corruption? If so, did you report it?
None whatsoever.
My final question relates to, can the public protector take binding remedial action on the NPA?
No.
Why?
It's in terms of the law. When you look at the NPA Act, only the NDPP has got the right to make prosecutorial decisions. So if you have the public protector who says, do this, we are acting in breach of that act. And even in terms of the Public Protectors Act, it clearly indicates that the public protector must submit his or her report to these bodies for nothing.
Okay, my final question. Earlier you said we don't report to politicians, you report to Parliament. Isn't it true that Parliament is constituted by politicians?
It's true.
What did you mean?
What I mean is, if you look, you remember the Constitutional Court case by Muhweng on Chief Justice on Nkanda judgment. There is one important observation that you made, that once members of Parliament are sworn in, theoretically you cease to be members of your political parties and you become public representatives.
And this office.
So let's talk about success. On what grounds would a deputy public protector succeed a public protector? Is that legal, that they follow each other? Like, I didn't understand what you meant.
No, it's not automatic. The DPP is not entitled to become...
So you're saying
that
Parliament must appoint deputy public protectors as public protectors when the public protector ends?
Honorable members, let's try and balance questions not to be just a cross-examination.
We don't have time, Chair, and the candidate takes long pauses, like Mandela, so I'm not going to allow him to do that. Yes, Chief.
Yeah, a quick one. And this is a good example. Look at the office of the Auditor General. Kimi Makwetu succeeded who? Before him, clear succession planning. Why has Parliament in that instance done that? If you look at